Okay, how's it going, guys? It's Hybrid Spectre. So I'm going to be reading a new lore book for you guys. It's for the Dawning, and you're probably wondering what I'm doing in the tower. Well, I like the music for the tower, and I think it will synergize well with this lore book. I had to move someplace quieter because I couldn't talk over Master Rahul talking, so I had to pick a different setting. So this is the Dawning lore book. This is told by Eva Levante. And for those of you who are new to Destiny and don't know who that is, she is currently running the Dawning event, and in Destiny 1, she sold shaders and emblems to us back in Destiny 1. So that's Eva Levante if you didn't know. So this is the Dawning Delights lore book. You get it by making all 15 treats. It's very easy. You'll have it done in about an hour or so. So this is the Dawning Delights lore book. Lighter days. I've known Zavala a long time, you know. He was one of the first people to greet me when I arrived at the tower all those years ago. Though I suppose greet may be too soft a word. It implies a sort of friendliness, a warmth. And Zavala, if you've never met him, he can be a bit stern. He's hardened further since the Red War, I'm sorry to see, though I suppose we all have to some degree. In any case, that very first meeting left a sour taste in my mouth. I hate to admit that I avoided Zavala when I could after that, though sometimes he makes himself unavoidable. It wasn't long after this meeting that I celebrated my first Dawning at the tower. Everyone's spirits were high, and it was so nice to see the people I had come to care about smiling and toasting each other. I remember Tess and I had just finished with a bit of decorating, and she had left to get something when Zavala began heading my way. Oh no, I thought. Oh no, not this man. But he came right over. So I smiled and I wished him a happy Dawning, because I did wish good things for him. It is often the sternest among us who hold the saddest hearts. He wished me the same, and then, I almost couldn't believe it, he smiled. We exchanged some brief pleasantries, and I don't remember what I said that brought this on, but suddenly he said, "Oh, that reminds me of a joke." A joke? At first I thought I must have heard him wrong, because the Titan Vanguard had always struck me as the no-time-for-joking sort. But he had barely begun telling his story before I noticed how much more relaxed his posture was. It seemed the spirit of the Dawning had even reached this stone man. I remember only pieces of the joke these days. I believe it had to do with a guardian and a fallen captain, but I clearly remember that he stumbled over the first few words and had to start again. I gave the warmest smile I could to encourage him, and he went on to tell one of the longest, most awkward jokes I have ever heard. And listen, I loved every minute of it. Truly, I couldn't have been happier. Oh, I clapped and laughed along with what I swear was real, true joy from Zavala. To have such a guarded soul open like that, few things are more beautiful. I admired him so in that moment that he could push himself beyond the boundaries he'd held himself to. I remember hoping that I could someday be so brave in my own way. I remember hoping that I could someday be... I'm sorry, I read that again. For the first time, I didn't just respect him as one of the city leaders. For the first time, I felt real, genuine affection for Zavala. The person. Zavala, my friend. He has been dear to me. He has been dear to my heart ever since. Yaller Doodles. Mix ether cane and delicious explosion. Add essence of Dawning, then bake. Tradition is bigger than you. When Tess told me that the Frames had organized the Dawning in the new tower while I was all the way out at the farm, I thought, how could they do it without me? Then I said, Ava, these traditions are bigger than you. They live in the hearts and minds of people who have passed them on, generations after generation. Now I'm back in the tower, helping to create the loveliest Dawning celebration yet. And I carry on a tradition I am sure to repeat year after year. Every year, I should say, I'm sorry. I asked Ikora to make a Dawning crystal, and I ask until she does it. I make an appointment to discuss the decorations, but I know she's very busy with the urgent Vanguard business. That's why when I approach her alcove, and hear low voices, I don't barge right in. I just peek a little. Ikora is muttering. She sounds almost angry. dawning decorations. I have no time for frivolous, a male voice says. It is not frivolous. People need this. I understand that it is hard for you because it's the first dawning without Kate stop talking, or Futius, or Fitius. I think that's how you say it. Right now, I do not see who Ikora is talking to or recognize this name, but Ikora's voice is sharp. I have other concerns. What about the latest reports out of the Tangled Shore? I don't know what to make of them, and my hidden have reported trouble brewing closer to home. I noticed her eyes drift across the main passageway to a secluded nook with a partially closed gate. Yes, Ikora, but... And there's never a word from Osiris. Not that I expected, but she shakes her head. With respect, why not just message him? Perhaps I just don't have time to, she pauses. Eva Levante. I make sure to tread loudly and rustle my sheaf of dawning crystal designs as I enter. Why have her think I was eavesdropping? Ikora watches me, arms crossed. Her ghost hovers by her ear, wearying with alertness. Happy dawning, Ikora Ray, I begin. She can tell by my big bright smile and the firm way I spread out the designs for her to pick from that it will go faster if she says yes. She respects our tradition, though. She says no twice. Then she says, fine, Ava, fine. She does not believe the crystal matters, though. She avoids my gaze, but her ghost, I see his eye blink at me. The design she promises to make is exquisite. We agree to meet again when she finishes it. I join her in the bazaar while running errands with my assistant Malia. So many last-minute tasks. When we march up, Ikora and her Ophiuchus, I think that's how you say it, are huddled together. She keeps shaking her head, but still she lifts her arms, and suddenly an enormous dawning crystal winks into being in the skies above the tower, like a million diamonds suspended in air. Malia gasps. She has never been so high in the tower, nor seen the dawning crystal up so close, only from the city far below. She drops all the packages she was carrying. The Warlock Vanguard helps Malia pick them up, piling one parcel on top of another until she realizes Malia is still as stone, kneeling, watching her hands that had kindled light from air. The poor girl's scarred face is slick with tears, and she wipes them with her sleeves. But the tears will not stop. Malia's family escaped the city during the Red War, you see. Though they survived and have a home again, there have never been many beautiful things in their lives. Malia touches Ikora's arm and mouths a thank you. Her cheeks flush red as a pincushion. Then I kneel too, a bit slowly nowadays, to take the packages from Ikora, all but one, bound in golden ribbon and embossed with an open eye encircled by a sun. I nod and press it into her hands. Then I hear that ghost of Ikora's whisper, "I told you so," and Ikora reply, "So you did." Traveler donut holes. Mix cabal oil and flash of inspiration. Add essence of dawning, then bake. Dawning before the dawning. Amanda once told me that her mother, Nora, came from desert people in a place far, far from here. Nora had been on the road since she was a girl, sometimes with nothing more than an old scribbled map and that shotgun of hers. She didn't need much, but she did need people. Nora met Amanda's father in some half-abandoned village, and when she told him about the last safe city, well, he followed her. They had no family but themselves. They picked up fellow refugees on the way, lost others. Then they had their precious little girl. It must have been a slow, slow road. First with a little baby, then with a young child. But they believed. They had hope. They pushed on. Amanda told me about the one particular dawning they had shared out in the wilds. They had fallen in with another family that had a child, Lucia, a bit older than little Amanda. They were agreeable travel companions. They found themselves in the thick of the forest, and the wind wailing, a storm coming down, branches flying, and realized they had to stay put. So they found the wreckage of a dropship, lean up a wing and crumbled siding, and squeeze all the grown-ups and the 2 little ones into the dry space underneath the rusted hull. Then Amanda's mother says, "We'll be here a while. Might as well do something to keep our spirits up." She sends the adults out foraging for something to eat, something to drink, then something to keep dry. Amanda's father comes back with long-leaved plants to weave into mats. Their companions return with full water flasks, some prickly fruit, and a dozen or so wild vegetables like cucumbers. With dried fish from their packs, it is quite a feast. As the adults are working, Lucia is curling the rinds from the fruit into little flowers, but Amanda is kicking her legs, restless. "Make yourself useful. Make some decorations," Amanda's mother urges her. She hands Amanda wires and nuts and bolts and a circuit board full of little lights. Lucia comes jumping, an old battery in her hand. Together the girls make miniature garlands of tiny bulbs, and Lucia shows Amanda how to touch the wires into the battery to make them light up. Bright little lights in the vast dark forest. Amanda told me about the fruit with soft white flesh and a sour taste. She told me about how they sang made-up songs together with no words, just humming and tapping out a beat on the metal walls of their shelter. She doesn't know what the fruit was. Maybe it does not exist anymore. The other family? They got separated from Amanda's people. Later on, Amanda's parents? Gone. Like so many others on the road to the last safe city. But Amanda Holiday still makes the lights, uses spare odds and ends to decorate her workshop. She does it every dawning. Chocolate chip cookies, mix cabal oil and null taste, add essence of dawning, then bake. It's the feeling that counts. Some residents of the tower have been around very long indeed. The Guardians, the Exos, the old Iron Lord. They have seen dawning after dawning, even before the tower began observing the holiday as we know it. There were those who would always celebrate with similar ceremonies of light and hope. Sometimes these memories blend together, but the feeling remains. This dawning season, last week, the week before, I can't even remember. One of my suppliers tells me they had 2 of my boxes delivered to the gunsmith by mistake, so I go to see Banshee 44 to sort it all out. The Exo has no recollection of a delivery, but he recognizes me, and I noticed his eyes glow a teensy bit brighter. "Must be about the dawning," he mumbles, and he turns on his heel and heads straight into some shelves at the back. He returns with 2 big boxes. "These them?" he asks. We open the first one up. Inside, we find a very, very old box of chocolates, many different portable kits for cleaning weapons, a copy of Hunter of the Heart. I know this novel, but it's not for everyone. A necklace with a bullet pendant, tucked with care into a little box. Stacks and stacks of dawning greeting cards. I shake my head gently. Those are presents people have given you for the dawning, Banshee. The gunsmith blinks a couple times. Then he closes the carton. I worry he should have thrown away the chocolates, but maybe next year. And then turns to the other one on the counter. He lifts the cover. It's full of dawning gifts, wrapped in brightly colored paper and tied in glittery ribbon. Some are in tiny boxes, but some are guns, of course. They are meticulously labeled. "I think these are the presents you are giving out to friends this year, no?" I ask with a wink. Banshee gives one brisk nod as he turns over the labels, reading them. I observe that some have detailed instructions, the Exo shrugs. I got into the habit of writing everything down. Sometimes I don't always remember. He waves the thought away. Right. I still need my supplies. I still need my supplies? The boxes I came to get? I nudge him. He tilts his head a moment and finally raises a finger. Oh, I know where they are. But before he takes away his boxes, I tap the covers. You should label them. Old dawning gifts, new dawning gifts to be delivered. He nods at me and scribbles on the lids. I never forget my friends for the dawning. He makes sure to tell me as he hands me the packages. I'm very glad. Happy dawning, Banshee, I reply, squeezing his arm. I do hope he remembers to get rid of those chocolates. Telemetry tapioca, mix Vex milk and bullet spray, add essence of dawning, then bake. Our choices define us. Sometimes when I face something frightening, I think of the strongest people I know and draw strength from them. Soraya Hawthorne is one of those people. I know her brusque attitude can be off-putting, and that's intentional on her part. But once you get past that, there is so much to learn. She was orphaned as a young girl, and Devram and Mark took her in. Honestly, I think having these two as role models is part of why she's as strong as she is. They raised her to be sure of herself and to always do what she thought was right, even though that ultimately led her to having to leave the city. As Soraya tells it, she came home one day to find Mark and Devram sitting at the kitchen table, as though expecting her. They had her sit down, then ask if there was anything she wanted to tell them. She shook her head. Nope. Mark asked her to try again, but she was silent. So he told her that executor Hideo had stopped by their home. She asked how he was. You know how he is, Devram asked. Tell us what happened. His face got in the way. Mark took a deep breath and said Hideo claimed to have caught her stealing supplies that morning and did not have something to say. And did she have anything to say about that? She did not. He reminded her that stealing supplies and breaking a faction leader's nose were both good ways to get kicked out of the city, and Soraya couldn't keep quiet no longer. She almost shouted her explanation. The factions didn't care about the people who needed food and supplies, the people who could not pledge to a faction because they were too busy struggling to survive. She wanted to help them, so she would sometimes steal supplies from New Monarchy. Devram asked, "What about Hideo?" Soraya rolled her eyes and groaned, explained that when Hideo found her, he'd said all manner of nasty, evil things to her. She was worthless. She was nothing. Things like that. Devram agreed Hideo was, well, I won't repeat it, but suffice to say that it means an unpleasant person. He held a lot of influence, though, and he was insisting Soraya be punished. Harshly. For Soraya's part, this seems to crystallize something. She tells me that that's the first time she knew she wanted to leave the city. That perhaps this had been part of why she'd punched Hideo. She told her guardians, and they couldn't believe it. They were quiet for a bit, then Devram broke silent. Well, let's get packed. No, she said, absolutely not. She was not about to let her decisions hurt these men who had taken her in and cared for her. They'd done nothing wrong. Oh, they fought her. As she tells it, they argued for a long time until finally she shrugged and said, "If you try to come with me, I'll run away." She suspected they knew there was no bluff to call, as they spoke now in tired, worried voices, making their case one last time. Soraya was adamant. "I won't let you suffer for my choices." What could they do? She asked when she had to leave. Mark said she couldn't hold off Hideo for a day or two, so they could all make a plan. His voice became stern again, and he said, "You're going somewhere close enough that we can come back and check on you as often as we like. At least for a while, that is non-negotiable." We had no negotiating power, of course, but Soraya had agreed. She stayed very near to the city for over a year before saying proper goodbyes and heading out further into the world. Soraya Hawthorne is, in my mind, the definition of doing what you think is right regardless of the consequences. She knew it was right to help struggling families. She knew it was right to not put Devram and Mark in harm's way. And she knew it was right to give some peace of mind by staying close. That is the kind of true courage I have always admired. I'm not going to bother reading the ingredients because that just takes too long. Extended family. Oh, Devram. Who can meet Devram and say they don't like him? He looks out for those and helps anyone who asks. I saw him many times after I made my way back to the farm. He'd come by from time to time to check in on everyone and make sure everything was going all right. We even sat down to tea a few times. Such a kind, sincere soul. We need more of those, you know. We talked many times about the war, and he tried so hard to convince me to arm myself. You've seen what's out there, he would say, as though I might have forgotten. We argued about it time and time again. I had jobs that didn't require fighting, I would explain, and that was intentional. My strongest contributions lay elsewhere, and I meant to keep my focus here. I remember one conversation in particular where Devram was absolutely adamant. Ava, he finally said louder than I think he meant to. His eyes were urgent, almost angry, as they locked on mine. This isn't some what-if situation. You've already had to defend yourself. It stands to reason you'll have to again. The Cabal aren't backing down, and they're not the only threat. To know all that and still not even try to protect yourself, it's irresponsible. Yes, I had defended myself, and I had hated everything about it. Devram, I kept my voice soft, but my words clear. The fighting, the shooting, the mayhem, that's not what I want to be part of. I've seen enough. If it comes from me again, and I agree it could, then so be it. I want to be part of the healing. I want to be part of what builds us back up. Don't we need that? Poor Devram finally stopped trying to convince me. He never stopped checking in, though. Old habits, as they say. When I finally came back to the city, though, what do you think was waiting for me? The Dawning Festival was just the beginning, and the postmaster had a package for me. Inside, a beautiful sidearm, ornate designed, antique coloring, and a note from Devram, of course. At first I was indignant after all our conversations. I had half a mind to simply throw the gun away. Instead I read the note. Ava, my friend. I was sorry to hear you'd left the farm after all, but very glad to know you'll be among dear friends. In that spirit, and in the spirit of the Dawning, I wanted to offer you this gift. This has been passed down through my family for generations. It's a K family heirloom, and before you throw it away, you should know that it doesn't fire. I thought this might be a nice compromise, and I hope you'll accept it. I hope the tower treats you well, old friend. Devram. I read the note a few more times, then folded it and put it in my pocket. I looked down once more at this beautiful heirloom, a symbol of friendship, of family, and reflected on the fact that somehow, despite everything, I managed to rediscover both. The Dawning on the Stormy Seas. Every dawning I receive my greeting cards from customers. The ones I treasure the most contain stories about how people all across our solar system observe the holiday. One of my favorite letters came from someone who was a customer of mine, but once, Lady Sloane, stone-born out on Titan, one of Saturn's moons. Dear Ava, happy dawning. First, thanks for the delivery. All the requisitions arrived in perfect condition, and you did a great job packaging up all of the chicken. More on that later. We tried decorating the railings outside the command center with the garlands, but the Fallen have been using the lights for target practice. I guess we'll be getting some more next year and prettying up the break room instead. A couple of the dawning lanterns got whipped away in the wind too. We're not known for our clement weather out here on the methane seas. Some guardians who've been helping me out on Titan mentioned that you'll like to hear about the dawning traditions outside the city, so here's how we celebrate on this moon we call home. This year, I let the crew off duty early, 16 hours, and took a whole hour off myself so we could have ourselves a little dawning soiree in the command center. Siren's watch has got quite a view of the waves, some floating platforms, so we pushed our break room tables together end to end and looked out at the horizon while we shared a communal feast. Seeing as the room is exposed to the elements, the glass view window broke long ago, but repairing it hasn't been a priority. Dell and Ari had to bundle up, and we had to weigh the tablecloth down with chunks of metal. I've had worse setups. Ava, it was the best meal I've had in ages. That chicken, delicious. Every one of us got to try a piece. We cut our protein rations into fun shapes, and once we got your taffy warmed up enough to chew, it was heaven. We exchanged dawning gifts as well. Somebody even cross-stitched me an inspirational quote to hang in my quarters. Where's my beacon? It's an in-joke. Decent tools, heavy ammo, thick socks. Those are the kinds of gifts that we change hands out here. Maybe that doesn't impress people accustomed to the dawning in the tower, but those presents have worth to us. Then we join hands afterward, whether for warmth or just conviviality. We got to talking in a way we never really had before. I don't think I've ever voluntarily shared stories about myself in my life. We talked about who we were before the Red War and where we came from, and even where we might want to go in the future. It's not easy here on the storm-tossed moon. One jolt and you're off tumbling off a platform into eternity. Between the fallen and the hive and the elements, we're always just struggling to stay alive. But as we sat there chatting, we felt alive. I guess I wrote all this just to say thank you, Ava, for reminding us to take a moment to appreciate and rejoice, no matter what. I find that inspiring. Sincerely, Sloan. I've never left Earth, and Titan sounds like a very interesting place. But reading how this holiday has brought people together in such faraway places, I feel all my efforts have been worth it. I hope to see Sloan again someday. Let's see. Celebrate each other. I had heard of the Exodus colony ships before. I didn't remember much about them, just one of those names from history lessons that sticks with you. To tell you the truth, I had forgotten about it until more recently, when some Guardians told me that they found one of them crashed on Nessus, and explained what had happened to its failsafes. I understand they were originally one AI, the ship's navigational intelligence, but with time they separated. It sounds to me like one of them is always happy, and the other is always sad. That's no way to live for either of them. These things must exist in balance. I know they're computers, but I worry for them. One Guardian in particular spoke to me recently of the time he told the failsafes about the Dawning Festival. He had just turned some bounties into them, and mentioned that he was excited to get back to Earth to participate in the festivities. They stopped him and asked him to explain what that meant. They had never heard of the Dawning. He said something to the effect, it's a winter celebration that combines several old Earth traditions. They responded, I will try to word this exactly as he did, since he prided himself on his imitation of them. They responded by the happy one, saying, according to my database, Earth's winter occurs when one hemisphere is oriented away from the sun. Why do you celebrate being cold? Then the sad one said, I can't feel cold, but it sounds awful. So this Guardian said something like, it's more that we're celebrating each other, which I love because that is how I've always thought of it as well. We're all here together, eating sweets and being with each other. The failsafes asked a few more questions, and then the happy one said, if we are celebrating each other, how can I participate in the Dawning? I am all alone. It is very depressing. The sad one said, I'm not going to celebrate the fallen. My Guardian friend thought quickly and said, you can wish every Guardian that comes out to Nessus a happy Dawning. Celebrate with us. We would love that. That seemed to cheer both of them up a bit. So I'm glad he thought to say it. Apparently they practiced wishing him a happy Dawning for a better part of an hour, so I expect they're quite good at it now. Go visit them if you have a chance. Being far away from the city shouldn't stop anyone from having a pleasant Dawning. We're almost done here, guys. Hang in there. Say it with a Dawning gift. It's not only my customers who keep me running about. People are always coming to me for advice. Sometimes it's this shader or that. And does this mark look okay on me? Sometimes it's, should I hold a Dawning party? Or why should I go to the Dawning party? But sometimes the questions are even more complicated. I was stealing a moment of quiet one afternoon to organize all the jumbled rolls of wrapping paper when I heard a resonant voice calling to me. How I jumped. It was a certain well-known Titan, not Zavala, but I will not tell you who. Ava Levante does not tattle about sensitive matters. He was carrying a formidable piece of weaponry, a complicated curve of many metal parts with a thick string connected to the ends. It's a compound bow, he explained, following my stare. For shooting arrows. I raised my eyebrows in puzzlement. On that weapon, he had placed a large pouch of red velvet ribbon, a bow on a bow. I could tell from the tilt in his helmet and his taut grip on the weapon that something was amiss. I sighed. I saw this a few times every dawning. I suspected he was smitten, and this would not be a short conversation. Warmest dawning greetings to you, Torito. That is not his actual name, naturally. It is a made-up name. Ava Levante. They say you should give a dawning gift when you have a special friend, he boomed, trying to whisper. Who is they? I laughed. He ignored me. I brought my friend this bow. Is it a good gift? It all depends on your friend. What do they like? What are they like? Can you describe them? She likes to fight. She is regal. She is very... The Titan paused. It's a recurve bow. Is a recurve bow more romantic than a compound bow? He managed to whisper this time. Ah, I nodded knowingly. I wouldn't know the difference between those weapons, but I understood his problem. But maybe a book would be better, he asked. Again, it depends on which book you choose. I have read Ikora's On Circles revised edition, and it was very good. This is a terrible dawning gift. Might I suggest literature? Torito tapped the horn on his helmet to reflect. I did destroy a book of hers once. Should I replace it? Maybe you should not remind her of a bad thing happening. He didn't reply to this, so I went on. Perhaps this bow is already the right dawning gift for your friend. Do you think she would use it? Definitely. Well then, I smiled, you have your answer. Happy dawning to you and your friend both. And to you, Ava. I hope your dawning is one to remember. Then the Titan thanked me, heft the bow, and strode off. That's Shax. God, he's awkward. He's very awkward. No such thing as coincidence. I always seem to get a customer with many questions right as things get busiest, in the late afternoon. Today it was a woman, a beautiful, sturdy guardian with dark, cropped hair and a diagonal stripe of white across each eye. Very striking. She had a satchel slung over one shoulder and a stack of books and packages cradled in one arm. By this, I guess she was a paying customer. She also had a cheeky curl to her lip and a hand on her hip. And she tapped her fingers as well as she waited. By this, I guess she was a hunter. Happy dawning, miss, I greeted her. She launched right in. Can you help me put together a really small, intimate dawning celebration? Do you have, like, a kit or something? She asked, peering back over her shoulder with impatience. It's a surprise for somebody who's used to dawning in the city. Only now we're all the way over on Mars, so... Ah, well, the dawning basics are decorations, shared food, and gifts. First, you have a choice of lanterns. I pointed to the colorful spheres lining the shop, and candles. I produced a box of tea candles from under the counter and thumped it down in front of her. And streamers. Candles and streamers are a fire hazard. I'll take candles and streamers are a fire hazard. I'll take candles and lanterns. Silver and yellow lanterns Silver and yellow lanterns go well together. She squinted up at my display. Purple. I'll give you purple, green, and silver. That's a pretty combination. The dawning is about wonder and beauty, so you don't buy just one lantern. I stacked the according lanterns on top of the candles. She opened her mouth and then shut it again. Excuse me. I pulled out my biggest assortment of dawning treats and placed it on the counter. Sharing and generosity are the heart of the dawning. This collection is one you want. Here I paused, if you want to impress someone you love. She pursed her lips and pushed the ribbon package of sweets next to the candles and lanterns. Smiling, I pulled over a rack of my finer garments. Finally, the dawning gift, the most important... Oh, I already got Oh, I've already got a good dawning gift. She put her belongings on the counter to point out the necklace box on top. I also happened to scan the spines of the thick books, some with very long titles, all labeled Fuan Library, Reference, Do Not Remove. The hunter noticed my frown and shoved the books into her satchel. Here's what I picked. Think she'll like it? I didn't know who she was, but I admired the necklace she was showing off, an elongulated pendant with an emblem of a little bird, of exquisite workmanship. She grinned. That design is golden age, but the pendant also holds 35 petabytes of data. I returned her smile. I also convinced her to buy a sturdy book bag and purple wrapping paper. There, your own personal dawning in a bag, I said, tucking away her glimmer and handing over her purchases. I hope your companion enjoys the surprise. I think I just got returned to orbit. The hunter bobbed her head in thanks and turned to go. Anastasia, who did I see then but Commander Zavala standing arms akimbo in the corridor as the press of the afternoon's shopping crowd flowed around him. Zavala, muttered the hunter. She pushed her shoulders back and thrust her chin. She looked fierce as a falcon. Happy dawning, Anna. I'm surprised to see you in the tower. Yeah, well, I had errands. But I missed what else they said, because someone ran up with a package asking, Hey, did I hear that woman was headed back to Mars? This one's going there too. I ran my eyes down the package list. Candles, lanterns, candy, assortment, wrapping paper, cloak, ordered by Cameron Dumuzzi. I got a funny feeling. It was such a coincidence. I think this is meant to be a surprise. The package can wait for tomorrow's delivery, I replied. When I looked back, Zavala and the hunter were deep in conversation, the Titan wearing a half smile and the woman smirking. By this, I guessed that the dawning spirit was uniting old friends. And with that, I turned to my next customer. A friendly face. Have you ever met someone who immediately rubbed you the wrong way? They can appear friendly, but it's always a particular type of friend. The different varieties can be hard to recognize when you're young, but with time, you'll see them all. The rarest form of genuine kindness, though there is also fair weather friendly. I want something friendly, and look how friendly I am friendly. That last one is always hiding something, and they hope their performance covers it up. This last group is where we hope to find that man who calls himself the Drifter. I do not like to speak ill of others, but him I do not trust. I don't really know what he does out beyond that gate, and I'm not really sure I want to know. I've spoken to him only a couple of times. He always seems like he's in a rush. The one conversation we had beyond our introduction was very short, and he slinked away before I could get any answers. It was right before the start of the Dawning Festival. I was getting my decorations set up as he walked up to my booth and asked, I'm going to do my Drifter impression, Well, what's all this? Surely you know of the dawning, I said, not in a rude way, but in a friendly way. I know you're a snake. Friendly. Oh, of course, he said. I guess I'd forgotten it was getting to be that season. Time just goes right on by, don't it, sister? Right on by. Right on by. He looked up at the decorations for a long time, hands on his hips and nodding approvingly. It certainly can, I said. Actually, I wanted to ask... You know, he said, I don't know that I've been anywhere that actually celebrated the dawning. Why don't you tell me a thing or two? I may not be centuries old, my friend, but I'm no naive child either. Old Ava knows a lie when she hears it. I spent a bit of time telling him about our festival anyway, explaining our traditions and the meaning behind them. He nodded along, seemingly very attentive. I tried to bring the conversation back to him. So, Drifter, where are you? Well, best be on my way, he said, pretending not to hear me as he backed up. I've taken up enough of your time. Who knows how much any of us have left? As he walked off, he tossed back, like the decor, good colors, then disappeared around the corner. I've heard other people talk about this strange man. They mostly say the same things, very friendly if a little mysterious. On the other hand, I've also heard some things I won't repeat. They're far too gruesome to be true, and I won't facilitate spreading false rumors. I'm sure his eating habits are no different from yours or mine. Suffice to say, something is off about him. I'd recommend keeping an eye on him. A Tale Twice Told. What I have loved most since coming back to the tower is reconnecting with everyone. I missed my friends while I was away, and I thought about them every day, even when you're doing what you know is right. It can be hard not to wish for times past. I wanted so much to catch up on everything I missed, but these guardians are so busy, always flitting in and out. You can barely get a word out of them most of the time. I feel like so much has happened, but I get only drips of information. Spider is a name I hear over and over, but who is he? A common criminal? A deity? A friend? Some accounts paint him as all three. What is about this spider fellow that compels these guardians so? And do I have it right that he feeds on ghosts? Ghosts? What an utterly despicable practice. Even the most detestable ghost doesn't deserve that kind of treatment. Yes, I am thinking of one in particular, but I'm afraid old Eva will keep that secret to herself. From what I can put together, this spider fellow had a group of barons, I think. If that's correct, his relationship with them seems tenuous. I don't know what one gets up to on this tangled shore, but I think he had them all killed. Before that, though, Spider's barons broke into some kind of high-security prison out in space. They were looking for something belonging to Spider. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was ghosts, or maybe it was weapons. Although, why'd he have someone look for these things in a prison? I don't know. While his barons were in there, the prisoners started to fight them. The rascal Cade 6 was also in the prison on a mission that I don't think was related to Spider's mission. They ended up in the same fight, though from what it sounds like. Then while everyone was fighting, the Reef Queen's brother arrived. When I first heard this story, at this point I thought to myself, oh good, finally someone on our side. The awoken prince will help get things in order. Now keep in mind that I had always heard he was a bit stiff, but also that he was willing to help when it came down to it. That was before his sister, though. Loss can be terrible, ugly things to us. This leads me to the only detail I know with absolute certainty. Aldrin Sov killed Cade 6. I don't know why, but I suspected it was part of because the prince succumbed to the pain in his heart and lost the ability to see things as they are. Anyway, once Spider's barons left the prison, they ran all over the reef. I guess they had found what Spider was looking for, but decided to keep those things for themselves. The Spider sent people after the barons, and I don't think any of the barons survived. While all this was going on, someone killed Aldrin. I assume it was revenge for Cade, but I can't get anyone to tell me with certainty who did it. Based on everything else I hear about the Spider, I wonder if Aldrin wasn't also his work. Many of my Guardian friends are still doing favors for this creature who, at best, betrays his own people. I am not sure if that road leads anywhere good, though perhaps I don't have the whole truth. This is no history lesson. Take it however you will. Some people just don't have time to talk to old Ava, it seems. What makes us one? What are the Awoken? Not in the sense of how did they come to be. I don't care about that any more than about how the Cabal or the Fallen came to be. As far as I'm concerned, the universe decided it wanted them, and so it made them. Who am I to question the universe? I've heard people talk about Petrovenge and the Tangled Shore lately. It's very confusing. Rope together rocks, and you just jump between them? It's no wonder that Reefborn Awoken are so often suspicious of others if they grew up unable to even trust the ground. But the Awoken as a whole, I feel like my grasp of them has certainly grown, but there are things I still don't understand. They are certainly part of what we consider humanity, just as much as humans are exos. I know this and believe it, but what makes it so? Is it because they are made like we are? The Cabal are built roughly as we are, but we do not consider them as part of humanity. Is it our shared relationship with the Traveler? As hard as it is to believe, I have heard the Fallen had a relationship with the Traveler, but they are not part of humanity. Does humanity consider only those who choose to walk among humans? But by that logic, Reefborn Awoken who remain in the Reef are not part of humanity. I don't believe that's true, and yet Petra has spent most of her life in the Reef, hasn't she? I know she was here playing emissary for a while, but she was always considered the Reef her true home. Would she describe herself as part of humanity? I think if you walked up to Petra and asked her, "Are you a member of humanity?" she would respond, I am an Awoken of the Reef." If you pressed her further and asked, "Yes, but which side are you on?" I would believe she would say, "The side of Queen Marasav." So then, is humanity something we choose, or is it ascribed to you? Is it a title to be earned, or a birthright or heritage? Are the Awoken part of humanity due to one of these stipulations, or could it be that the Awoken are part of humanity because of all of these stipulations? Individually, these ideas don't define humanity any more than a cloak defines a hunter, but collectively, that they are built as we are, that they share our relationship with the Traveler, and that many of them gladly walk among us here on Earth. Maybe that is what makes them part of humanity. Everything bound together, just as we are bound together. That togetherness is what helped us win the Red War, and I truly believe it will help us push back the darkness for good. Never forget that our unity is what makes us strong, and the Awoken will always be part of that. You get used to him. There's a strange fellow who, well, perhaps you've seen him. He doesn't really come and go as you or I might traditionally think. It's more that you turn around and he's either there or he is not. His appearances are steady and predictable. At least. He's called Zur, and I'm not sure why one draws the tiny arrow over his name, but it's important to try and respect the wishes of those we don't understand. The first time I ever saw Zur, I was by myself at my stall in the old tower, I suppose you'd call it now. I hadn't been there long at all. I looked up and this man had appeared seemingly out of nowhere. His back was to me, but even from behind, something seemed off about him. Something in his posture. As he started to turn, I noticed his face appeared to be covered in hair. It even seemed to be moving, gently flowing on its own. But there was no wind. When the light hit his face, I screamed and ducked down behind part of my cabinets. I was sure this abomination had come to invade us, that more of them were just out of sight, that we were done for. Eventually I realized no one else was screaming. I heard no sounds of distress. I peeked out and saw that everyone was going about their business. No one was panicking but me. Many people saw him. Several were interacting with him. Slowly, I stood back up and tried to go about my business, though I rarely looked away. Tess came over before too long, and I asked her about the strange figure. "Oh, that's Zur," she said, unconcerned. "He comes through every so often and sells particular hard-to-find things." She considered him for a moment, then added, "Could do with that bit of wardrobe update if you ask me, but he's otherwise harmless." "What is he?" I asked. "I've never seen a creature like that before." "Zur is, I believe he's called a Jovian. They're from out beyond the Reef. I'm afraid I don't know much else about them." "But they're friendly?" "Well, they don't attack us, if that's what you mean. I don't know that I'd call Zur friendly, but he's not hostile." I felt more at ease after our conversation, though I still could not shake my fear. For many months I jumped every time I saw him, and I had to fight back against the instinct to hide. Eventually I grew used to his presence. I even began to appreciate his predictability. It became a symbol that everything was functioning as it should be. The fear evaporated with time. I have often found that my first reaction to new things is fear. Perhaps it's the way for everyone. However, I have also found that if I accept and acknowledge my fear, it is easier to push through until I am no longer afraid. The new thing has almost never been as frightening as I first feared. There's no Asher Mir. No Asher Mir. Huh. Well. Okay, well, I guess there's no Asher Mir. Oh well. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed all that. This is the Dawning Lore book, so, told by Ava Levante. It's kind of cheery, I will say. So, hope you guys enjoyed that. And the next ones I'm going to be uploading are either the Drifter's Gambit or the Dreaming City. So, whichever one comes first, you'll see one of those next. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next one.